Welcome, everybody, to the PinstripeChronicles podcast. I am Tats. I am here with Donald. And joining us today, we are happy to see that we are talking with Ernest Dove. Ernest, introduce yourselves to our audience.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yeah, I'm Ernest Dove from the Sports Report, also part of SportsWire on sportnarium.com/player. You can find me on Twitter at Ernest Dove, ErnestDove. And yeah, I'm just one of those guys on the internet, one of those blogger nerds slash wannabe podcasters, and just talking sports as much as I can.
We appreciate you joining us. I want to start the conversation because with the lockout now going officially into effect, do the minor leaguers feel sometimes on the lower level, do they get worried about their development with the facilities being shut down?
I mean, you know what? They're always left out. They're left out permanently. It's one of those tough things too. Like even in the pandemic year when there was no minor league season, I know guys. It's not like these major leaguers where it's like, oh, I'll be stuck in my mansion for months, like training in my own facility. I got minor leaguers like, hey, what's going on, man? I'm in my dad's garage with the weights, like pumping iron. I mean, or other guys are just, they would meet up at local parks. Doesn't matter, obviously, the affiliation. It's like literally Little League. It's me and you guys like, hey, you want to get together at the park down the street? Whatever minor leaguer happens to live in the area, they just show up and just with their gloves and be like, hey, let's throw a ball. So I know for them it's tough, but even for some of them, I even saw some of the major leaguers mention it, and that's big for the minor leaguers too, by the way. If you're rehabbing Tommy Johns or anything else, I don't know, just don't do anything big. Don't throw off a mound. Like they don't really watch you, especially in the minor leagues. You're kind of on your own. So they're obviously always lost, and because they don't have the finances to back themselves up, they just kind of chill in their own homes and trying to figure out what they're going to do. It's even worse now.
And actually that speaks really to their dedication to the game. That they're willing to weather the storm, especially, we already had the one shut down, they already got screwed in 2020. And now with this, if they're still continuing to stay in the game, that's a tremendous, tip of the cap to those guys to be able to continue to want to develop themselves and, anybody that's recovering from an injury to get themselves better. So, really a tremendous job from their point, and they really do deserve better. They should have a facility or, help, like you said, help from the major league players. I have this facility in my home, come by, if they're in the same vicinity. It'd be nice to see that camaraderie built as well, because who knows, they could be teammates in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, there's so many amazing guys there. But again, too, by the way, minor leaguers covering the minors for years, I'll be like, hey, what's going on? I'm all excited, or it's off season. I want to know what they're doing. Like, hey, tell me about your training program. He's like, well, when I get off work, because by the way, they all get part-time jobs in the off season. So yeah. I know guys that are like substitute teachers. One guy was like, what is he doing? He's pulling gravel, doing construction. One guy was working at a clothing store.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
So yeah, that's why it's even worse. Like, hey, how are you going to be getting through through this all stuff and lockouts? Well, all right. Well, I'm going to be working this week, and then when I get home, depending on when the ones that have families or not families, they're living their new temporary life with temporary jobs, which also makes it rough.
Yeah,
I had no idea. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's because again, the biggest thing with the baseball, like anything else, is going to be like how much your contract is, or for the minor leaguers, what's your salary, the draft signing bonus. But there's a lot of guys out there, their signing bonus was like 10 grand or less. And then we could talk about it too on the show when we're getting into the major leaguers fighting over the arbitration, basically like 6 years in the organization. By the way, you also get those 6 years from the draft, and you got guys where your signing bonus is 5 grand, 10 grand. Oh, and we're going to pay you $400 a week and have you for 6 years, I guess, unless you skyrocket to the majors. So that's the other issue right there, is not only the majors, but the minor leaguers. when they control you all those years in the draft, if you don't skyrocket to the majors, that's what you're doing for 6 years, grabbing part-time jobs and then dreaming about, can I still try to make it in the meantime?
No, it brings up, like there's a big narrative for having a salary floor. And I think the salary floor is becoming obvious. The salary floor needs to be implemented into the minor leagues more than the major leagues. You want these guys to be able, to play for your team and your organization. You got to make sure that they could survive on that. Because who knows how, it almost makes you wonder how many really major league caliber talent players left the minor leagues just because they couldn't survive. And they were players that could have been, that never was.
And then you could see it, you guys, we all see it in certain years. You have certain players, they kind of catch on even a little bit later here and there. And I've known certain guys over the years, they had some good seasons. And then I had one guy, had a couple of good seasons, had a real rough season, got hurt, came back. Well, actually hit like 400 for in April in the minors, got hurt for like a month and a half. By the time he came back, went down, and then they released him. And that's how quickly it can happen when you don't have the signing bonus or the draft, status backing you up. So, but you have guys that they do pick it on later on. There's 40-year-old stars right now in the majors. So, these guys can peak at all kind of ages. So, yeah, that's another rough time they got to go through.
Yep. No, it's really a shame. They really do need some type of, job security. Just like every normal person wants. We want that job security so we can provide for ourselves and our families. They don't get that through these teams that are, where the owners are billionaires.
Yeah.
And it seems like, well, you're not a major league player, so you don't matter, or don't matter as much. And that's a very sad narrative.
ESPN posted an article in September by June Lee, posted an article interviewing minor leaguers. And the article is, can a union fix this? Minor leaguers say poverty level pay, poor housing are driving a mental health crisis. So what can you tell us about some of the living conditions that these minor leaguers are? Are a bunch of them just kind of staying in the same room, or what? How does it work?
There's even some minor league staffs now and then, guys that do certain parts behind the scenes in the minor leagues. They'll even group up depending on friendships with the players. Some of the players can group up 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time. So you have like 6 guys in the same spot. I've known multiple minor leaguers I've been covering and being friendly with over the years. They'll sleep on couches, depending on who gets what. You kind of do what you got to do. They don't want to even make it sound so bad. They want to just focus on their dreams. And I don't want to make it seem like woe is they. They know they're going for their dream.
Yeah.
But again, you get 4, 5, 6 guys sharing a room temporarily, or, a lot of those things, your small paychecks of like $400 or $500 a week, or even 400, it doesn't show up until a certain time of the year. So you can come in like February, and by the way, you're on your own until the checks start. So if some of those guys come from their hometowns and then they go to the spring sites for their organizations, they got to pay their own way for a while too. Or the thing with the minors is like with the Mets in Port St. Lucie, and I'm sure a lot of organizations out there around the league, they have these sponsor parents, which, by the way, what that means is they start begging people around the community, can you take in players? And sometimes they do that. So some guys, based on certain relationships, it could be anyone, people that love the minor league team, they start taking in players, and they're the ones that get fed and do great. The rest of them, yeah. And then you have guys, by the way, even if they're in their 20s, they may get married young, have a child young. They bring their families with them. And now you have like a wife and a child fighting that struggle with them. And it's all temporary housing. And by the way, you're on your own now, because if you want to house yourself and your own family, you don't get to bunk with like 5 guys sharing the rent. So
is that something that the players union can fix? Can they like put in better housing and better money and better wages for these minor leaguers?
Well, see, I know some of the newest rumors that have come out, even through Baseball America, a lot of other sites, they've been talking about some of the negotiations and then saying, well, we're going to pay for housing. Like, it makes it sound amazing. And all the minor leaguers I've been talking to, a couple of them I interviewed as well, they would be very thankful for the free housing. But again, if I ask you two guys, hey, I'm gonna put you up in a free house, I mean, for the same minimum wage, but wouldn't that be great? And it's like, well, yeah, I would love the housing, but if I offer the two of you a free house, free of charge, but you don't have a job, or you make like 400, you're making 1,200 in like a 6-month period, 1,100 a month. The free house is great. Your expenses are down, but if your income is still 1,100 a month only for 6 months and it cuts off, like, so that's why the minor leaguers would be like, listen, we're very thankful. We love the idea of free housing. Because by the way, it could be anywhere. St. Lucie's kind of cheap. By the way, oh, you got called up. You're going to Brooklyn. Yeah, good luck paying rent over there in Brooklyn. So you got to find housing every time you get. The good news is you got promoted. The bad news is we're doubling whatever rent you were paying wherever you were last. But the guys overall, they really would want the money factor and the actual salary factor, because again, free housing is great. Maybe throw in some free food, which by the way, some of the food stuff, you kind of have to wonder. It's like, well, you get this food maybe twice a day if you go to this location, but some guys probably just spend the money and go where they want to go. Yeah. That's where the salary comes in. These guys have been telling me I would love the control of my own money, not just telling me, here's a room, here's a hotel, you can stay there for free, man, congrats. But there's no extra money. So you're still not really controlling much of anything at that point.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction that they're trying, it does cut an expense from them during the season for when they're playing. But, it's extremely clear that they need to do more on the financial aspect of it, because that's where it's really unjustified, and, not to, for lack of a better term, to put it in a very poor way, it's almost, like a slave trade. They own you, you're owned by the organization and you're at their mercy. And that's where there seems to be, the hostilities where somebody might walk into the room and be like, look, I can't do this anymore. Either play me or trade me, and, try to go to an organization that might get them up the ranks a little faster. So that's one, they have to do a lot better. They really do. And the other problem with the minor leagues that we see as fans is that the argument and the disconnect with the arbitration years and how that all works, and when they reach free agency or the Rule 5. Is there any way, can you give us some light on their feelings on arbitration?
Well, again, it's always one of those tough situations. I just had it in the interview when I interviewed one of the top 10 prospects in the Mets organization, Carlos Cortez. Started talking to him about the Rule 5 draft. He was one of the guys that was eligible, and the Mets decided not to protect him. So now you don't have that, guaranteed super extra stuff that comes with being on the 40-man roster at that point, which, by the way, makes it a lot easier now to go right to the majors, which, by the way, now you're getting into the 6 figures the day one you step onto the field. And when it comes down to that process, now you're confused, because then even right now, right, you're in the off season, we're in a lockout. Some of these guys are getting part-time jobs. And then some of these guys, by the way, are Rule 5 eligible. They don't even know who their employer is going to be in the next few weeks. And that's another tough part of that. And I know one of the minor leaguers I talked to, he actually did get drafted. That's an absolute dream come true. But it's a really tough situation for the minor leaguers. You're under the control of the organization that drafts you for like at least 4 years. And then there's the Rule 5 draft. Then you're like somewhat almost not unemployed when you're not protected. You don't know where you're going. Now it could be on a completely different organization. Obviously, you want to be taken in that draft, because that means you're going to get that shot at a major league active roster and the salary that goes with it.
It's also the recognition for all the hard work you put in.
Absolutely. And then it's one of those things where if you don't get protected, you can't let it get you down, though, because you still have to be on your same path. You can still kind of stay with the same organization at that point. But again, it's a long process. Like I've been saying online, I know major leaguers are fighting for it, right? Well, I want to get my ARBs done a year early or whatever. But for the minor league version of that, they can cut you at literally any time they feel like it from the day they draft you. So that's pretty tough. I mean, when you don't know where you're coming or going. Like I said, you could spend an off season working part-time, doing what you can on your own, and they'll call you before spring like, we're cutting you. And then you got to start all over. And I've known minor leaguers who would get cut right before spring. And then you're sitting there on your own, depending on who you know, because a lot of them, they can have agents. A lot of them could just be their own agent. But even for the ones that do, now you're just calling, trying to get your minor league, client. Who knows them? Who remembers watching them? How many games were they in? It's such it's even tougher process when they're stuck all those years. But then if they get cut out of nowhere, depending on the timing of it, now they're scrambling just to try to figure out if they can keep the dream alive.
Yeah. Is there more of a breath of fresh air from these guys once they reach the AA level, as far as, as opposed to when they're in, low A or high A? Is it like, okay, it's starting to work out? Like, what's their mindset as they move up the ranks?
I mean, there's so many different versions of that. That's the thing. We'll talk about
very broad question.
we could talk about how guys get used, right? So in the minor leagues, and I've had a couple of players, they're willing to admit that label, even though they hate it, of being the prospect filler, and they kind of know what that means. That kind of means where it's like, well, you're in the organization because, every team needs to field the team, like Little League. So they get it. But also part of that is, I know minor leaguers, they'll go from A ball to AAA and AA and A ball and AAA and AA in one season. Mostly a lot of the pitchers will do that. I know there was this kind of utility star on the Mets, Cody Bohannon. He could play like 7 different positions. They had him wherever. They had him in AAA and then all the way back down to high A. It's crazy. So, but I know when guys get to AA, that's when you start sniffing it, because AA is known as the show me level, right? Yeah. When you get to AA, that's pretty much like, if you succeed in AA, there's a chance you're getting a cup of coffee at some point. So yeah, once you hit AA, depending on the stress or the motivations of it, AA is the absolute level where it's like, boom, from here, you're either going to sniff the majors even for a day or a week to fill a hole, or this is going to be your last stop probably. Because in AAA, like, guys get bounced up and down. There's a lot of veterans, that bad stereotype label of the quad A guys, the 4A guys. I mean, that's what's going on in AAA. But when you get to AA, that's the spot. If you start succeeding there, even on a certain level, you're probably like, wow, yeah, whenever I talk to these minor leaguers that make it to AA, they know from this point on, it's like, I'm so close to making my whole dream come true.
Right. Make or break.
I mean, at that point, because I mean, guys can get cut from anywhere in the minors. Again, that's the tough part. You can be cut in rookie ball. You can be cut 2 years into your draft, after your draft. You can be cut after the 5th and 6th year, where you become you're finally a minor league free agent, but that's because you've been in the same organization for so many years. Whatever reasons or even injuries, you never made it all the way up. And then no one takes a chance on you again after that.
Well, yeah, the Yankees released Chris Gittens, who's obviously a AAA player, but he had some cup of coffee at the major league level last year, but he's going to Japan now. So he actually asked to be opted out to Japan. Yeah. And then, of course, you get the 40-man crunch, and then you start cutting guys. So the Yankees non-tendered like Clint Frazier, who was obviously quite a hefty prospect at major league level. He's now released. So it happens, man. You can be released at any time.
Yeah, and they can do kind of whatever they want, even with the minor leaguers or some of the upper minors guys. I know minor leaguers that did make it to the promised land, and then you make it to the majors, and then you probably only got called up at that point to fill a hole, and then the hole gets brought back, or the team signs another veteran. And not only do you get demoted, a lot of times they'll DFA you to make room for the new major leaguer. So you have a guy, he made it to the promised land, major league debut, within weeks. Not only are you demoted again, you even lose your entire active and 40-man roster spot, and you got to kind of start all over and fight your way back. So that's another of the toughest things that I've seen. A couple of minor league friends that I've seen that happen to. The dream came true, and then not only are you demoted, you'll take the demotion, but they even take away your 40-man spot for another veteran who needs to come back. So it's like,
I would like to see a policy implemented that if you're assigned to the 40-man, that to be, before the season starts, and that gives you protection where you cannot be DFA'd within that season. So even if you're sent back down, you get that protection. Like you said, it goes back to job security. That's something I would like to see implemented. It's not realistic, but that's definitely something I would like to see. Is there any kind of what are the minor leaguers looking for that you know of? That's their number one concern with the CBA.
well, they're always kind of left out of it one way or another. So it's just kind of like, is anyone still going to look out for us ultimately? Those are always going to be the key things. Like when can I go back to work? Or just let me know, because I'm still working as normal pretty much. But it's just they're in a tough spot because no one's really specifically. I don't think the players union is literally fighting for the minor leaguers by name at this point. It's just about, they keep trying to set things up and they're trying to do the right thing. But the minor leaguers, as always, they're out in the cold trying to figure out what to do. I think someone did the math on it too. If you were to pretty much pay every minor leaguer like 30 grand for a year, it probably amounts to like an amount of money that teams give out to like a middle reliever at this point per year. So it's just like, can we at least get something, because they're just kind of doing what they always do. I don't even know if they're necessarily affected at all by the lockout, because they're not even a part of anything anyway. They're still the same. They're the same guys living their same dreams. The last time they'll speak with a coach in the organization or a coordinator, they're just like, all right, just do what you do, man. Or are you throwing off a mound this week? Great. They have certain sites or links you could like send your videos, and it's like, hey, send me the video and I'll give it a look and we'll stay in touch. That's what they do anyway.
So let's touch on the major leagues for a level. Let's talk about the CBA. How long would you predict this lockout will last, and where do you think will be the major stumbling blocks in negotiations?
For me, I keep thinking like it's been discussed ad nauseum at this point. Like, how do you, with Major League Baseball growing the way it's been, this would really be an awful time to at least get it into a season. I would, in my head or in my heart, I'm thinking this is just going to be a thing and it's going to be resolved before spring, because really, are you really going to get into this again? They just did this whole nightmare in the pandemic and that didn't go well for anybody involved. So did they really want to do this so quickly already? So they're probably, in my head, I feel like they're going to figure this out to have the same 162 game season. Some of the finances and the weird stuff they semi-negotiated for like 7 minutes or something stupid. Like,
that was so weird. 7 minutes. Come on.
I just, that doesn't make much sense to me, but you know what? We're here in early December. I'm planning on just February, when the workouts are starting at the minor league and the spring sites and the complexes. I'm expecting to just be there as normal. And I know some of the players are as well. I've been trying to talk to one of the players. He's like, I'm a little confused. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to hang low and hopefully I'll see you in like February. So, that's the only thing you got to expect it. Maybe have this as normal. They're going to figure this out. There's too much money at stake. Not enough free agents even got to squeeze in their contracts, which, by the way, it makes this whole thing ridiculous. You got guys signing $1 billion contracts. Oh, there's a lockout. A lockout for what? Obviously, there's going to be a sport. There's going to be a profession. There's going to be a job with employers and employees. So it makes this even worse on them, like always, when it comes to the fans and the viewers, because you're signing 10-year contracts. Oh, there's a lockout. Really? A lockout for what? People are signing their normal contracts. Teams can the Mets right now can sign a manager today. Like, this whole thing just looks silly in the public because we all know the shop's not closing, everybody. The pizza joint ain't closing down right now. If it closes for a week for a hurricane, it's coming back up. Like, it's not over. So it makes it look worse, really.
Yeah, no, I'm anticipating by the end of this calendar year they'll have it figured out. I don't think they want to go into the time period where we got pitches and catches. I don't anticipate them really still, fighting through the media. I think they'll have it all figured out because I think both sides are going to come to the point where, you know what, enough is enough, and they're going to try to correct some of the mistakes they made during the pandemic because that was extremely ugly.
I don't know, man. I think you're being overly confident. Did you read that letter that Manfred sent? Manfred's letter was just basically it's all the players' union's fault, and then the players' union kind of gave it a little bit back. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's too much, and if you're having interview meetings for 7 minutes and then leaving again, I've had quicker cups of coffee. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. It doesn't sound like this is something that's going to be resolved quickly, judging by the letter that Manfred sent out. And everybody hates Manfred too, which is a big thing.
Well, that's how that goes anyway. That's why I still think it'll get done to have an actual 162 game season, but
I think so too. Yeah.
How they want to drag this out and, what are the end results? I don't know what else they can do. We could talk about these things forever. Like, even these weird manipulations with service time, which it seems ridiculous to even start to break camp with a team or wait 2 weeks. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard to hold a guy back for like a couple of weeks. That was the whole Chris Bryant thing, I believe, years ago.
Yeah, he was the focal point to that.
I mean, that should be one of the easy negotiations. Should also be like, hey, if you reach the majors, like, don't do that nonsense. I mean, if they're going to come up with these options, and I don't know how much you can fight when it comes to options and being able to get demoted all the time, but overall, when you reach the majors, there really shouldn't be those forms of service times and everything else. Or even honestly, like 40-man, if I can magically do something to help out even minor leaguers, if you make the 40-man roster, you need to have some form of a huge salary, whether you play in AAA or not, because you're literally going to be on call in any day. So it does seem kind of weird. Like some guy making $1,000 or whatever a month, he gets called up, and for 1 week, he gets the version of like a $500,000 salary for a week. But if you get demoted again, you're back to the minor league salary. That sounds dumb.
I think if you're on the 40-man, you should have the minimum salary.
There should be some form of a huge salary for the year for anyone in the 40-man, because on any given day, even if it's literally for a day or for the double headers, like you're the 27th man at this point. Like that's why all 40-man guys at least should get, I don't know what, but you need to come up with a decent, maybe even a 6-figure salary at that point to start with, because I mean, you get called up once, you're making over $500,000. They should even that out.
I think the major league minimum right now is $800. So if you give them $5, or a $400,000 salary, because they're on call, you're paying them enough to, you value them enough to be called up at any time, compensate them for it, but. Look, you're only here, you're going to be up and down. So we can't give you the whole thing. So we'll pay you half that salary. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Because again, I mean, I've known top prospects that are getting hyped up in national media attention, top 100 in major leagues, and they're getting a part-time job in the off season. Like, imagine like you're getting all this hype. You're one of the top 100 prospects. You're being discussed about like your major league debut next year, and you still have to just work a regular job right before the next season. There's got to be better ways. So a start could be something 40-man, definitely 6 figures, and go from there, because you're pretty much a version of a major leaguer at that point anyway, because your number is probably going to be called at any moment.
Yeah. So many GMs love to manipulate the service times. Love to do it. I mean, even the Yankee fans here this year were very frustrated by Cashman. He was manipulating the service time like nothing on earth. Esteban Florio, who was a big MLB prospect, he was often used as a 27th man doubleheaders, just sitting on the end of a bench and then send him back down again, or you play one game and send him back down again. I just don't think that's the right treatment for a minor league prospect who's highly rated within baseball circles.
And you're helping out the major league you're helping out a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying even in the minor leagues, you can call guys what you want. Prospect fillers, quad A guys, they're just filling up the field. You got guys playing 3 levels just to pitch 2-3 innings and get back out of it. But that, you know how much that's needed? I mean, there's guys where you're playing with the future Wander Franco and the Trouts and that new superstar for the Yankees that I was even got hear about a little bit down in St. Lucie playing in the Florida State League. With a Jason, it just
Jason Dominguez.
So if you're going to be playing with a guy like that, by the way, for all I know, in like 3 years, 4 years, he's going to be I don't know, maybe he's the face of baseball. I have no idea, but you're helping him develop by pitching as a pro to a pro. I mean, that's why these guys deserve what they deserve, because the future in Jason and everything else, and he has some 23-year-old pitching to him. That 23-year-old deserves a lot because he's a professional baseball player. And this is all a form of development. And it should be part of a version of teammates and coworkers anyway on some level. Why should you make basically like $5 an hour and the other guy's making 6 figures? It's just really weird as a dynamic in the minors all the way up.
Yeah,
agreed.
Obviously, you stated that you're a Mets fan and you deal with the minor leagues. For some of our Met fans that are friends that are Met fans, is there a minor leaguer that may not be getting the press that they get as a prospect that you think is a player that they should look out for?
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of Mets minors junkies out there too. And I mean, obviously I know Carlos Cortez has been highly ranked now for a little while. There's been other guys. I've been a fan of Marcel Renteria, who was a pitcher, was getting pretty much no exposure. And then during the lost season, I'm staying in communication with him. He's using the analytics, all the training. By the way, again, minor leaguers training on your own. And then quietly, when there's no season going on, Marcel Renteria is in all the analytics, making the changes. He starts hitting 97, as high as 99 miles an hour on his fastball. And once word starts coming into these last season, all of a sudden he's in everyone's top 30 for the Mets. He's a guy to always look out for Marcel Renteria, a guy who's pretty much highly ranked, but he has a stereotypes maybe for being short and maybe for being more of a changeup pitcher. There's a pitcher named Jose Buto that I've heard about since 2019, pitching in the low A level. He's one of those pitchers where I've had some people overhype him, so I don't want to get anyone too excited with like some kind of Pedro Martinez type stuff, but because they don't have a similar kind of things too. But Jose Buto is another one of those guys that Mets might see in the majors, even as soon as 2022, as one of those depth, pitching kind of arms. It's tougher on the bats because they're all younger, and the ones that are known are well known already, like the catcher Francisco Alvarez, and they know Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty. But it's going to be a lot of it. Could also be, like I said, it's going to be some of the pitching. So if you see a guy like Marcel Renteria get called up, that would be an amazing thing. Because again, not the most well known, but when you can throw 97 plus, you're going to find your way to the majors. So he could be one of those guys who gets on that train, that back and forth trolley to and from AAA into the majors one day soon.
Is there one that you think might break into the major league team this year? Anyone that we should keep an eye on?
I mean, I thought Marcel Renteria might have probably made it, and then he had an unfortunate injury towards the end of the year when the Mets started calling up pretty much anybody. They were just like, we need anyone. Is there anyone else in indie ball who could take the field? For other major league guys, Carlos Cortez, it could be tough because if he's more of an outfielder now and the Mets are signing a bunch of more veterans, I think if anything in the Mets organization, especially if anyone gets called up in 2022, it'll probably be arms just to help out other arms.
Well, yes, last year they were desperate for arms. They were ready to call up the guy that throws the peanuts to the crowd. They were really, it seemed like they were grasping at straws for pitching.
It could be anybody. And like I said, the dreams, right? A player that I love, Steven Nagosic, another guy who throws 97 plus. He's been bouncing up and down for a couple of years between AAA and the Mets. And then he made his way back up. and then they cut him off the whole 40-man, stay with the Mets. In 2021, the dream again. He made it back up from no rostered to active roster. Pitches like once or twice. I think he gets an injury. Oh, we're going to cut you again. Not only demote you, but then take you off the 40-man when they were bringing in as many veterans as possible to just take the field. So that's another guy who could bounce his way right back up, throwing 97 plus. I mean, you can't teach that. So it's one of those things where I would expect there's going to be the minor league arms more getting called up. Everyone else wants the dream guys, like Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty, who are kind of younger, coming off Double-A. Can they have a good enough spring to get promoted to the majors? I guess it's almost funny to say as a Mets fan, considering how bad they've been, but these new Mets, I doubt they have any shot because there's too much money and depth nowadays. So
that's so true. Well, talking about money and depth, tell us about your evaluation of the offseason so far. Scherzer and Marte, you happy? Must be over the rim.
Well, it would be, it would be really awful to say I'm not happy. I want more at this point. Yeah, it was obviously a big move. I know Stroman comes with all the chaos and the online banter and debates, so I think it would have been pretty good to get a player like him back in, but to have Scherzer, they get the 1-2 punch now going forward. You just got to knock on some wood, I guess. I mean, what are you going to do? You got to hope the two of them are going to make it. But again, they also signed the depth because in the last offseason, the Mets, they did do really well with depth, but it was more minor league type stuff, guys with options. The Mets were going to take advantage of all kind of guys that had options, which for the organization standpoint was a good thing. So it's great for the team that they had a whole bunch of depth guys that were going to be AAA majors. But this year, now they're signing all these guys to $10+ million a year deals.
Yeah.
That's where all the depth now already, even before the lockout, they're pretty much set other than maybe get one more starter or one more reliever. And then if you want to try to get another major league bat, Chris Bryant sounds way too expensive, but the new Mets, apparently, they feel like they can get everybody. So
nothing's too expensive for going. Nothing is too expensive.
Hey, whatever. Oh, you already signed so-and-so. We don't care. Bring him in too. We'll bench other people. Mets fans at this point, they want to bench a bunch of major leaguers like Jeff McNeil, Dom Smith, bench them all, send them to the minors. We're good. Like it's gotten crazy in one off season. Everybody wants all their major leaguers just benched in favor of $10 and $20 million a year guys.
Well, one player I love that you guys go is Marte. I've always been a huge fan of him. I think he's going to be a nice guy at the top of the order.
Well, we wanted him for the Yankees.
Yeah. So I think he's a nice pickup. And also there's Kanya. I think he's really good too. Escobar. There's a bunch of – you just made smart signings. It was just smart.
Well, that's where I think Cohen actually did it right. When he came in as an owner – the first year, everybody was like, "Oh, he's going to try to, I'm the new kid in town, and I'm going to just push everybody around." He made a couple of good moves. He brought in the superstar for, he got Lindor. He's like, "All right, look, I'm serious about being an owner," and I like that. As much as we like to tease him and bash him because of all his social media antics, but I think he played it really well. Where let me focus on depth and, a couple of pieces here and there as his first year. Now that he got his feet wet as an owner for a whole season, now he's like, all right, now I'm even going to go even further. And he started getting all these free agents. I think that was a very smart move.
Yeah, so I'm saying everyone was kind of freaking out last year, but I really liked it because even from the minors junkie standpoints, I mean, I could see what was going on. Getting all the guys with options because you're going to start being able to use all that because as guys can get injured, now you're coming off with indie balls and you're promoting guys from Double-A who aren't ready. So now, when you start getting more of those guys that were pretty much the Mets pretty much started stealing guys in their ARB years from other teams in trades. They even did that with the Mats trade, by the way. They took on 3 guys and for better or worse, they flipped one of the 3 and got an outfielder who made a cup of coffee with the Mets. And then the other 2 arms were pretty much on the Mets all year. Maybe at some point they kept getting bounced back and forth. But you come up with 3 guys that all reach the majors and back and forth for one Mats. So that was the smart move, no matter how good Mats was too. But the Mets were getting 3 guys you can bounce up and down and manipulate with the options. So that's what a lot of teams are looking for. And that's exactly one of the greatest examples that they had of taking advantage of it. We can argue the value of the 3 guys versus Mats and who did what in the majors, but to have 3 guys fill in all year long consistently and then get bumped back and forth with the manipulation of it to help your roster, I mean, those are big things nowadays.
Yeah. All right. Closing question. The Yankees Mets is the hype for the Subway Series going to be amplified to a level that we haven't seen yet in our life?
I mean, I would say yes. Whether it's ESPN's and whatever, they're going to, no matter what, when that series comes around, somebody's doing a bidding war to make sure they televise almost every single one. And you can't really manipulate the rosters, but I'm sure everybody wants, DeGrom and Scherzer and Cole all pitching in this thing. Yeah. It's going to be absolutely insane. And I know there's already fans on both sides that are angry. I mean, yeah, as the Mets fan, it kind of gives me a chuckle if a lot of Yankees fans online seem upset and like complaining that the Mets are overpaying. Like,
I disagree.
No,
with
we're
that.
more pissed off with our own organization for doing nothing.
For them, I mean, at the end of the day, the way I viewed it is I don't think Max Scherzer went into free agency looking to sign for the Mets,
Yeah.
But what Cohen smartly did was he put his money where his mouth is, and he gave him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he got the job done. I think he deserves credit for that rather than. I mean, at the end of the day, there's not a salary cap. So it's not the only thing it's going to do is you just added this one of the best pitchers in all of baseball just behind DeGrom. It's perfect. You know what I mean? The only thing that's going to hurt is that Cohen's bottom line. He doesn't care. He doesn't have a bottom line. So, I mean, none of the fans should worry about it. It's a good deal as far as I'm concerned.
It's just kind of funny. But you know what? Honestly, for me, the Yankees are going to be the Yankees as far as I know. They're going to be above 500 in the playoffs regardless. So it's just a matter of are they going to be built in the right way, one way or another. I know last year it seemed insane to me taking so many guys coming off injuries and no innings. It was such a risk that was taken along with the stars that they're keeping up with. And then it's just like you had one pan out, maybe one struggle. For all the complaints about Judge, as far as I saw, he was playing all year. He was amazing. Yeah. So now you know what? Maybe Yankees fans, I don't know the extra Yankee talk. So is it, well, we want everybody too. We want those $20 million, $30 million guys now too. Or are they going to be signing Judge and they got to worry about that before signing some other star everyone wants for 7 and 10 year deals? Maybe that's one of the things too that has to be going on in the Yankees' minds, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, it's that game of chess. You don't want to make you want to make sure that you have all these different parallels. So if I pay Judge, these are my options. If I decide that I want to pay a free agent, now these become my options. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that sometimes fans they get tunnel vision where they forget to step back and look at the business aspect of it and realize that it's all about the organization's going to make money. That's their goal. And what I would like to see is rather than just go and just spending money on all these blockbuster deals, put the right pieces in the right place and the reward will come as, throughout the season. Yeah. I'd rather them spend smarter than bigger.
And then bank on the Subway Series. God knows what those ticket prices are going to be.
Gosh, it's insane. But listen, Ernest, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today. Hope you enjoyed it. And on behalf of everybody listening on sportname.com/player, we hope you all do have a good day on YouTube. Just remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check out our social medias in the description. Wear your pinstripes with pride and play hard.